Good afternoon, and thank you for joining the Multi-State Collaborative on Military Credit, the webinar entitled Defense Language Institute Foreign Language Center, an Overview. My name is Sarah Appel, and I'm the MCMC Project Coordinator, and I am located with the Midwestern Higher Education Compact. Just a couple of housekeeping rules. Any kind of questions that you might have, please submit those through the chat feature in the lower left-hand corner, and follow-up will be done as necessary. The presentations will be posted at the two links that you see there at the mech.org site and on our YouTube channel. We can't do all the work without some funding, and we really want to thank Lumina and USA Funds for providing that to us. Just a brief overview. The mission of the Multi-State Collaborative on Military Credit is to facilitate an interstate partnership of 13 states and to translate competencies acquired by veterans through military training and experiences toward college credentials. States will exchange information and share best practices in the areas of articulation of credit, certification and licensure, communication, and data and technology. We have, of course, project goals. The overarching goal is to assist student veterans with completing post-secondary education and the transition into civilian employment. And MCMC has established the following three supporting goals. Assist with critical life transitions from the military to post-secondary education, and then from post-secondary education to civilian employment. Increase post-secondary education completion rates by creating models for the consistent, transparent, and effective awarding of credit for military training and experience that can be scaled regionally and nationally, thereby lowering the cost of education and reducing the time to completion. Establish a strong network of support, communication, documentation, and data collection among institutions and organizations for the purpose of promoting shared interests and tracking the efficacy of efforts to enhance service members' educational successes. And this work is done by our 4 work groups: articulation of academic credit, licensure and certification, communication and outreach, and data systems and technology. Today's moderators are our co-chairs from the articulation of academic credit. So I will turn it over to you, Jim and Katie.
Well, thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you to DLI for being online and talking to us. Katie did most of the work to put this thing together, so I'm going to pass to Katie to talk about the effort, but I'm really excited to hear and hopefully be able to articulate some veteran and service member credit more on our campus because we understand DLI work better. Katie, do you have anything?
Sure, thanks, Jim. Yeah, and I want to also express my gratitude to the DLI staff for being here with us today. The power of networking, folks. I had the opportunity to meet someone at the NASPA Military Students or Military Connected Student Symposium earlier this year, who used to work with the gentleman that you'll be hearing from today. And she, of course, is now in Ohio. And those of you who know me, even though I'm a Michigander now, I did come from Ohio. And so we had a nice connection there and had the opportunity to talk a bit during that conference. And she mentioned she used to work there. And I said, hey, I work with this regional group. And we talked with a few folks through MCMC. And as everybody on the call, I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces, or familiar names anyway, behind your faces, of course. And we've talked at length, many of us, about how there are so many options and complicating factors and variables to be considered when thinking about military competencies and how can we bring those competencies in for alignment in higher education programs. And we spend a lot of time focusing on American Council on Education credits on the Joint Service Transcript. We talk some about the Community College of the Air Force, CCAF, and a number of other things. And when someone suggested that we should talk further with DLI, I sort of didn't understand why. But as I've gotten to know more about the institution and got to see a preview of today's presentation, I know that you're all going to enjoy hearing from the staff and that this can have a direct impact on transferability of the credits earned at the regionally accredited institution. You'll hear more about their accreditation. And then, of course, about transfer opportunities. I was pleased to hear that they embrace a reverse transfer mentality to helping traditional institutions kind of bridge that gap for service members who perhaps separate before they obtain their degree. So I'm looking forward to everything we're going to hear today. I know that it will be useful to all of you as it was for me, and I'm happy to help with my colleague Jim in moderating any questions that you have through the chat box. And without any further ado, I think we'll go ahead and just turn it right over to the gentlemen to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rob Savukinas, and I want to thank MCMC for the opportunity to share a little bit about what DLI is, a little bit about the Defense Language Proficiency Test pathway, our credit system as we're regionally accredited, and our Associate of Arts degree pathway. This is a very timely conference call because, as you know, we had the Army University Symposium, which touched on credentialing. We've heard Soldier for Life. We've heard things like preparing the soldier, the service member, to be an active participant from when they separate from the military. So these are all subjects that are very passionate. I'm passionate about. My background is in specifically higher education administration and also foreign language. I speak 2 foreign languages, and I've been teaching at the local community college for 10 years. My administrative background is that of a registrar, so I'm going to talk about credits and things that are, again, passionate, that registrars tend to be very passionate about. And also in a prior role, I've managed our institution's board. So look forward to a wonderful discussion. So thank you for allowing us the opportunity.
And my name is Stephen Payne. I'm the command historian at the Defense Language Institute, which means I'm the institutional memory. I do institutional history here. I'm also the accreditation liaison officer. I took over from Rob, whom you just heard from. And just a little background about us. We've been accredited since 1978. And I've worked with accreditation pretty much since I got here in 1996. So I became the accreditation liaison officer in 1998. We did not grant an AA degree, so I worked on that from 1998 through 2002 when we finally were awarded the ability to give an AA degree. We'll talk about that later. I've done directed a few accreditation reaffirmation processes, and in the midst of one right now as we speak. Our visit is coming up this coming March, and so our first drafts are coming in from our committees. So anyhow, that's a little bit about myself, and we'll get into the slides now. Let's see. I guess it's working. Okay. Thank you for joining us. Our mission is, as you can see there, the key thing about here is that we provide culturally based foreign language education. We really stress the cultural aspect of it, the history of the language, the area that the language is spoken, which gets into history, gets into the social sciences aspect, the religion, the area itself, whether we're in a rainforest area or on a desert area. It doesn't matter. The students need to know where the language is spoken, and that helps them understand what is going on in the actual language. And our vision then is, of course, to deliver the best foreign language education where it's needed. So that's not only here at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, but we also, as we'll discuss, we have linguists throughout the world, and we try and keep them up to speed as well. This next slide kind of describes, shows how we look at the Defense Language Institute and what we do. The base here, the foundation, and working on up to where we're trying to get our students to. So we're in the military. Rob and I are civilians, but we both served in the past. And all of our students are civilians. So standards and discipline is pretty important here. As we move up the next tier, SHARP stands for Sexual Harassment Awareness, Response, and Prevention. It's a key thing within the military. EEO, equal employment opportunity, which you're all pretty familiar with, I'm sure, at your institutions. Resiliency, we feel that's very important. The students, as we'll discuss, are in a very tough situation. They have to learn the equivalent of what a 4-year language major learns in the language. Instead of having 4 years, they're going to do it in anywhere from 8 months, 10 months to, say, a year and a half. And it's a nonstop process, so the resiliency is very important. And as you folks all know, students have ups and downs with their lives. And so we really try and work with our students to pick them up when they fall down and to have them help their colleagues throughout the system. We feel that we are responsible stewards of the money that's spent here, the time that is given, that the students give and the faculty give, and the people that are employed here and that come to study here. That's a key component. Technology support and modernization. When I first got here, we were using whiteboards, and I came here in 1996, and since then we've gone to all computerized everything within our program. We used to give students a stack of books that was about 1.5 to 2 feet high. We now give them a laptop. So things have changed in with what we do here in terms of technology. Faculty and staff recruitment, we, of course, just like you, trying to get the best faculty, the best staff. We'll talk a little bit about that a little later in the presentation. We want to retain people. We don't want them to come here for just a few years and leave. We'd like them to stay throughout their career. The next two areas there, empowerment and shared governance. Empowerment, we really can't do what we do without our faculty. As I often say to anyone, I work in headquarters building, but if the headquarters building disappears, tomorrow they'll be teaching up in our classrooms and our other buildings where the classrooms are. That's where the real mission is, and we really stress that's the mission, teaching students, faculty teaching students.
So as where the mission is located, let's say in the classroom, faculty teaching students, we also realize that innovation tends to come from the individuals that are performing in a particular capacity. So you can see to the right of empowerment is shared governance. We've taken significant steps in clarifying, defining communication channels to enable us to get those innovations potentially scalable throughout the institution where applicable. So we're really proud of the steps that we've taken in terms of shared governance with the support of our academic senate, our faculty advisory councils, our dean's councils, and I believe similar structures that you may have at your institutions as well.
We're going to be talking also throughout this presentation on our partnerships and with academia and industry. We're going to be looking at these pillars here of the columns. We'll be talking about each of those. The fact that our faculty have to be ready to speak, to teach. The students have to be ready to learn, and we have to develop our own curriculum. We're trying to get students to proficiency levels. So yes, we give letter grades, but the key thing here is we're getting them to a level of proficiency. We right now are looking at 2+, 2+, and what that means is a proficiency level of 2+ in listening, 2+ in reading. We also want them to have a level 1+ and shortly to go to 2 in speaking. And the next, the top of the area here deals with 3.3. Again, the 3.3 is basically what you're going to find in somebody teaching, say, at a college, or maybe someone who's worked for several years in a country. The top level within the ILR schedule, the U.S. Government Interagency Language Roundtable, that's what this is based on. The top level is 5, and the 5 means an educated native speaker, which, of course, our students are not, but our faculty are. So we'll be talking about that as we go through the presentation today. Here's the journey through DLI.
This again dovetails, I think, rather nicely with the symposium that took place this week in Kansas City. The concept of soldier for life, the General Chem indicated, once a service member separates, the Army's interest is to continue the tradition of success in having that individual become a contributing member of our society as a civilian. So this, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, that's where it starts, the little arrow pointing to the left. But when we see 3-3 and beyond, that is not just within a military context. It adds to individuals' capacity to become a productive member of society.
And moving on, our pedagogy, culturally based, learner-centered, and proficiency orientation. A graduate of DLI, and actually before they even graduate, I'll give you a little bit of background. The students will, in Korean and Chinese, actually compete up in the San Francisco Bay Area with students at colleges such as Stanford, University of California, Berkeley, and USF, University of San Francisco. Some of these students that they're competing against are heritage speakers, so they speak the language at home, but they're taking the language at these universities. So there's a competition. It's over several different things that they have a competition in, several different types of issues, but our students will often get a first place in one area, a third place in another area, second place in yet a third area, honorable mention in a fourth area. So we do quite well. Our students are still students. They haven't graduated yet, because once they finish up and graduate, they leave here to, of course, go into the military. The reason they're able to do what they're able to do, the high level of proficiency, is because we focus on the cultural aspects. We focus on the fact that these students perhaps come here without a foreign language. They need to learn how to learn a foreign language. And of course, we're looking at proficiency all the way through.
One thing I'd like to add to this slide is the teacher-student ratio. You'll notice one instructor. Can anyone tell me how many students are behind her? 6. So we'll get into further detail. That's what we refer to as a Category 4 language with a teacher-student ratio of 1 to 6.
Okay, our core competencies. Start at the top here. Right now we're teaching 17 languages. Since I've been here, we've taught up to 25 languages. It's based on the requirements of the military, the 4 services. Right now we have 2,500 students, roughly here and there, maybe a little more, a little less, depending on how many graduated in a particular week and how many are coming in. We don't work on the traditional semester model. Every week we have students graduate, and every week we have people coming in. In addition to what we teach here at Defense Language Institute, we have a contract program in Washington where we teach up to 65 languages, depending on the need. And those classrooms may have 1 or 2 students in them, but they might be officers rather than junior enlisted, for instance. We teach what is needed by the military. We have continuing education for the military graduates. So you graduate from here, and we're going to keep on reaching out. We'll talk about that in another slide as well. So we give a lot of support to the military once they leave. We have to develop our own curriculum here. We'll go through, say, a Spanish semester-long textbook. We'll go through that in maybe a week and a half to 2 weeks. Well, we still have months to go in our curriculum. So we need to develop our own curriculum, and it needs to be dealing with authentic materials rather than something that, say, in the textbook I learned Spanish from. which was probably 10 years old. So things come about in the world that the students need to learn now. Authentic materials are crucial to what we do here. And we'll talk a little bit later, too, about developing our own tests here. So this gives you kind of an overview of what we do at DLI.
One thing I'd like to add pertaining to curriculum is we focus on task-based, content-based instruction. We provide a context to which the learner can apply as opposed to activities requiring rote memory or fill in the blank. In other words, it's contextualized in some form or fashion.
Moving on, we have 4 categories of languages. This was developed with the Interagency Language Roundtable. Category 1, Spanish, French, are theoretically the easiest languages for American speakers of English to learn. Category 4 on the extreme right there, you have Arabic, Egyptian, Iraqi, Chinese, Pashto. These are harder languages, and the reasons for that are, for instance, in Spanish and French, the alphabet's the same, there's some accent marks, and more importantly, the culture is not that much different than the U.S. because the U.S. is based on Western European culture, our background here in the United States. We move on to Category 2, Indonesian. We used to teach German, and that would be a Category 2 language. Category 3 languages, of course, Persian, Farsi, Russian, Urdu, and Hebrew and Tagalog. As we get into Category 4, 3, and 4, we may break away from a traditional alphabet and have character-based languages as well as cultures that are quite different from what an 18-year-old right out of high school expect to see. So we're teaching language and culture, history, and all the rest of it all at the same time. You see here the course lengths. We just moved to Category 1 from 26 weeks. We gave them an extra 10 weeks up to 36 weeks, the same as Category 2. And that's because the Spanish and French we teach, the Spanish is not Castilian Spanish. It's that plus the Spanish is spoken all over the Spanish-speaking world. They need to understand that. My daughter took some language in Ecuador. She went across the border and had a hard time understanding what people were speaking. The accents are different. The emphasis is different depending on where you are. The same is true in French. It's not Parisian French. That's important, but they also have to know what the French that is spoken in parts of Africa. And so these are key things that students need to know. So as we move across, these things get harder for the student, therefore it takes more time traditionally. Prepared students. We work with our students in the service units. We have four service units here, of course, the Army, Marine, Navy, and Air Force. Each of them keep their students in their own barracks, and they do a lot of pre-course training in English grammar, in regional studies, to just introduce them to the fact that you're going to be learning something about the Mideast now. More importantly, study habits and time management. Students get here, they have to score extremely high on the ASVAB, which is the Armed Services Vocational Battery of Tests. If they don't score high, they can't even take the Defense Language Ability Battery that they need to get into here, and they have to score high in that as well. Yes, anyone can learn a language, given enough time. We don't have a lot of time, so we need to make sure these students are going to get through here. The study habits, our students come here, they didn't have to study much in high school. They're usually those students who scored well in exams. They have A's and B's without really trying. They get here, they don't have study habits, and they quickly fail. So we've taught them how to study and the reason that they need to study. Then we have student learning services that teach them a little bit more about introduction to language studies, test-taking strategies, and all the rest of it. Most people don't know how to do this until they're taught how to do this. You can see on the lower right here, we actually have over 13,500 degrees awarded since 80 degrees since 2002. So where students go out, they transfer in courses, they transfer back courses, and they get the AA that we'll talk about a little later. Student profile is such that you can see we have about 2,500 students, all 4 services. Most of them, as you can see, are either Army or Air Force. It varies back and forth depending on which month it is sometimes. And then the smaller services being the Marines, of course, and the Navy have fewer students at DLI. You can see the age there. So they're pretty young people, most of them right out of high school. Some are college graduates, either AA or a BA. A few officers, mostly males, and we do have a larger percentage of females here than you'll find in the general services. And then we have, you can see what they do when they leave here. They work in intelligence missions. And then here at the bottom, we'll talk about this later again too, the schedule.
Actually, you know what? This is a distinction between DLI and the Carnegie credit system. Allow me to explain, please. So we have here a schedule of 5 days a week, 6 hours per day. So that's about 30 hours of instruction per week, not counting the 2 to 3 hours of homework. So if we take that, and I believe one Carnegie unit is defined as 1 hour a week of instruction plus the homework for a period of 17 weeks. So let's just say 17 hours of instruction plus equals 1 Carnegie credit. So if we take that Category 1 or Category 2 language, as we saw on a prior slide, that is 36 weeks in duration, times the number of hours per week, 30, yields 1,080 hours of instruction. Take that 1,080 and divide it by 17 hours, or Carnegie unit definition. That's approximately 63.5 credits for a Category 1, Category 2, if you follow the Carnegie model. Taking it a step further, moving it to a Category 4 language, which is 64 weeks, I'm not going to go through the formula again, but it comes to 1,920 hours of instruction plus homework and et cetera, comes to about 112 to 113 credits. So I keep on going back to that Army University Symposium. We are not seat time based. We are an outcomes based institution, and we've been recognized as such by the Council of Higher Education Accreditation, which is also called CHIA recently.
Our faculty, as you can see here, 95% are native speakers. A few faculty are former graduates. They're called military language instructors. You can see the number of faculty, and if you recall, we have now 1,667 faculty as of March, and we had 2,500 students. Think of that ratio, and that gets back to the classroom size and the fact that one faculty member does not teach all 6 hours of students in the class each day. We rotate faculty through, so we need faculty here to be able to rotate in and out of the classroom, which gives the students male and female voices. The faculty work in teaching teams, so when they come in, they already know what's going on in the classroom. They know about the students because they've been working with the same students from day one. So they understand that certain students might be, they may have different learning styles. So they'll tailor things towards the student rather than keeping to a rigid schedule that you might find in, say, other military training programs. We have faculty training students. The faculty come here. They're educated native speakers. They come here with a BA, MA, or PhD, but most have not taught their language. Their MA may be in ESL, so they understand teaching a foreign language, but that foreign language is English. So now they have to take a course that we give, instructor certification course, where they learn to teach their own language. And so that we do a lot of that here, and then we continue with faculty professional development throughout their faculty's time here, and then we also give them opportunities to go to colleges here. If they come in with a BA, we want them to get that MA. And so we actually pay for the faculty to take courses that we feel will help us and help them teach our students. Okay. Oops, did I go the wrong way? I did. I'm sorry. Let me hit the button the other way. There we go. Okay. Immersions. What's the same? You might think of we say immersion programs. You might think of study abroad. Some of our immersions are local, though, not study abroad. But still, even though the classroom has educated native speakers teaching in these small groups, when the student leaves at the end of the day, they go back to the dorms, or the barracks as we call them, and then they may get into English again. So what we do is we have some weeks where they will go over to the former Fort Ord, now called Ord Military Community, and they're immersed in the language daytime and nighttime. And so they're eating, when they're eating in essentially speaking in the foreign language always. Some students go to OCONUS, which means off the continental shelf of the United States. So they'll go to the country, or countries that speak the language. So they may go to South Korea. They may go to China. They may go into one of the Arabic-speaking countries or one of the Spanish-speaking countries, and where they can actually be there. They'll maybe go to the local university for specialized training, but then they'll live in the culture. They'll walk the streets. They'll talk to people in shops in the language. They come back, and they've really improved their speaking ability and their listening ability as well. Once they leave here, as I mentioned before, they're still tied to DLI in a lot of ways. So we want them to keep their language proficiency in listening, speaking, reading up. Their mission, their military mission, may be listening, or they may be just interpreting the language, but they want them to keep all their skills up. So within the United States, as you can see, we have several foreign language training detachments, and we also have detachments in Europe, Korea, and where we bring students and so they can keep up their studies. And we also will teach them in other ways as well, as we'll discuss in a second. Oops, do that. Okay, non-resident instruction it's called. So they're learning the language and culture, and we have online resources. We have mobile training teams, language training detachments, so various things that we do for the military language professionals, those students who graduated from here, but also for the general purpose forces who need to know maybe a few phrases, but more importantly, need to know a little about the culture of the country that they may be visiting soon. Special operations forces need to learn other things. My son is actually a combat camera guy who was with Special Operations Forces in Afghanistan and Iraq, and I sent him and his group information where they could come online and get some of this training that they had needed.
I'd like to add BLTS stands for Broadband Language Training System. What that is one-on-one instruction through video conferencing capabilities. And again, we need to reach out to individuals in all kinds of time zones around the world, and we utilize that technology to enable us to do so efficiently and effectively.
Okay, our online resources are quite fantastic, and we urge you to go to DLI.edu and then scroll across and find our online resources. They're free. They're open to the public. DLIFLC.edu. And you can use this. Lots of these things are open to the public because they were built with public dollars, of course, tax dollars, and so we want to make them available. A lot of very interesting materials there, from just introduction to a country, cultural orientations, to some basic language information, we call survival language kits, language survival kits. Also a little more complicated, Head Start, where you're getting up to 100 hours of training in 39 languages. And then Rapport, which is even 6 to 8 hours of language training in several languages. So lots of things there that anyone can use, and we urge you to take a look at that, at these opportunities. Language testing. At the end of the course of study here, a program of study, I should say, they take the Defense Language Proficiencies test. This test was first introduced to the military in 1949. Since then, it's been updated 5 different times, and we're looking at the 6th iteration right now, what we should be doing. It's in listening and reading, and then there's a separate, what you see there is OPI, Oral Proficiency Interview. That's also given to our graduates. But every year in listening and reading, the DLPT, the graduates have to take this test to make sure that their proficiency is still where it needs to be in order to do the job. So they're here they might be in active duty for 4 to 6 to 20 years. They're going to take different iterations of this test, and each year to make sure that they can still do the job. And you can see there, we have 65 different languages. Talk about that later.
I'd like to elaborate a little bit on the Defense Language Proficiency Test as it relates to pathways for students. As you can see on the slide, ACE, American Council on Education, has been providing us with credit recommendations since 1989. The Defense Language Institute manages the ACE credit program for the Department of Defense. And the reason why I make that distinction is because the test is purposely separated administratively from the teaching component here at the Defense Language Institute. In other words, faculty members are not teaching a student and then also writing the test questions for the final exam. It's almost akin to let's say the RN, Registered Nursing Test, by a third party. But nonetheless, the Defense Language Proficiency Test ACE Credit Recommendations Program has been going on without interruption since 1989. Our most recent review was summer 2015, and our next one is 2018. I want to talk about the rigor of that actually. It's almost a mini self-study ahead of the site visit from ACE personnel, and in our case, ACE brings in foreign language experts from various 2-year and 4-year schools to evaluate the content, scope, and rigor of that test. They also bring in a psychometrician to validate the test validity and the procedures that were used for test development and review. So it's a rather arduous 2-day process consisting of, oh goodness, anywhere ranging from 12 ACE reviewers and upward. So
I need to interrupt real quick.
Go ahead, Sarah. You and I probably have the same idea.
I think so. We actually have a question for you, and the question is, how much time and depth is involved with Countries in Perspective, CIP, and Cultural Orientation, CO programs? Are there any colleges, college credit recommendations for these?
No, ma'am. Those are general orientations to the cultures and the norms of a particular country or region.
They're often, if someone's a general purpose force military, in other words, not a linguist, but they're going to be going to Afghanistan or Iraq or Germany or France, they'll get into these just to understand a little bit about what they're going to be seeing. The fact that culture might be a bit different than they're used to, but there's no credits there.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sure. Just basically a quick orientation to the culture of that region. So thank you for asking the question. Okay. This next slide, ACE DLPT, extending the pathway. I'd like to talk this out. As you can see where I got the tuition data on the bottom there. So the Registrar's Office in fiscal year 2013 receives 3,045 unique DLPT score report requests. And the reason why it's unique, it assumes that the individual, the requester, or the examinee is going to use that ACE credit recommendation at one institution at that time. So looking at the score of a ILR score, a DLPT score of 2 to 1+, 2 in listening, 2 in reading, and a 1+ in speaking, the DLI issued 36,540 ACE credit recommendations. So if you take all of those credits, and of course this is the assumption that all of those were received by and awarded to the individual by the receiving institution, it actually saves the total savings was about $9 million. Okay, so what does that mean for the individual student that takes that test? Actually, by the way, it can be not just a DLI student that takes that test because they get their college credit through DLIs being regionally accredited, but importantly, I must indicate here, any individual in the U.S. military can take the Defense Language Proficiency Test, send in a request for credit to the DLI registrar, and the registrar will send it out as directed by the examinee. So that having been said, a total savings of about $9 million has been realized. And what that does is it enables the service member to not dip into his or her GI Bill account for foreign language. Conversely, it enables that individual to utilize that GI Bill funds for courses beyond the foreign language area, perhaps the major that he or she is pursuing. So in terms of DLI's A degree program, it consists of completing the what we call the DLIFLC Basic Language Program coursework, which yields 45 semester credits, and it's the program where I alluded to, whereby if they're there for 64 weeks or 36 weeks, it's the same 45 semester credits because we are outcomes based. As you can see on the slide, a 2.0 GPA or higher and no final grade below a D. Of course, the required capstone test, the Defense Language Proficiency score of at least a 2 to 1+, or higher, of course, we prefer, but that's the minimum. And then 18 general education transfer credits. And this is where I think the pathway is especially important here, which I'll discuss in the next slide. And importantly, the individual must still be serving as a member, active duty, reserve, or National Guard, or a spouse. So here's the credit breakdown. DLI awards 45 credits. General education transfer, that can come from your institution. It can come from CLEP Dante's. I'll describe that in the next slide. And they get 3 credits for physical education through their attendance in their service units or organizations' basic training program. So it's a total of 63 credits required for the DLI Associate of Arts degree. So here are the general education transfer courses. Now, you can imagine DLIFLC is a military institution that's charged with teaching foreign language. So therefore, we do not teach English composition, college math, social science, or natural science, or technology courses per se, and award credits in those areas. This is where we depend on partners such as yourself to have students take those courses and apply them back to their AA degree at DLI. Now, I'd like to make a distinction. A student can graduate with a DLI diploma with 45 credits in his or her pocket. That individual or that service member can come back to DLI, apply for the AA degree. We make the process very straightforward, and say, hey, I'd like to apply for the AA degree. I understand I have these 5 general ed transfer credits or courses that I need to take, or complete rather, or requirements I need to complete. However, I'd like to take an English composition course, or a college math, or a social science, or even they could opt to, as you can see on that slide, fulfill it through the CLEP or Dante's, or if they took advanced placement courses or international baccalaureate program, those are other means to complete the pathway and the degree's requirements. So the how to apply, I alluded to making it very simple. It's a one-page form. There are no fees associated with it. The form is online at dliflc.edu. Once the form is completed, an AA degree advisor reaches out to the candidate and indicates the way ahead, meaning before an individual signs up for a course, we request that the individual reach back to DLI and basically ask the following question: is this course applicable to the AA degree? And then if the answer is yes, the individual completes the program and asks the issuing registrar's office to issue the transcript directly from them to DLI. Then final review is conducted, and we literally FedEx the credential and another copy of their transcript to the address that they provided. So that's basically covers the overview of the Defense Language Institute Foreign Language Center, basically who we are, what we do, who we serve, the Defense Language Proficiency Test, the Defense Language Proficiency Test pathway, and DLI's credits of 45 for the basic program, and the 63 credit Associate of Arts degree in Foreign Language program.
We do have a couple of questions, so I can ask one that relates to the Defense Language Proficiency Test. You mentioned that those are available to spouses. Are they also available to dependent children of service members?
I do not believe I mentioned that they're available to spouses. These tests are available to service members.
Unless the spouse is enrolled in the class. Sometimes there's a reason, say somebody's going to work in an embassy, then sometimes the spouse is in a class, but it's not automatic. So the AA degree is available to a spouse.
Got it.
Okay, that's different. Then they have to our course here.
I see. So spouses and dependents are eligible to register for courses and could pursue the AA degree. No, I'm sorry, I'm getting more confused.
Okay, so the only people who can are in our courses are people who are in the military, either active duty, reserve, or National Guard. That's the only way, and occasionally a spouse is allowed, but that's special circumstances. So,
I see.
And dependent children are never in a class.
That makes sense. Thank you so much for clarifying. And then another question that I know when we were preparing for the webinar, you weren't sure if either of you two on the line would be the most effective to answer this, but if an institution is interested in an articulation agreement, or if you have opportunities for more formal agreements with institutions to fill in the gen ed component of your AA degree, how would they indicate that, or what process would they take to connect with you for further information?
Certainly, great question. I appreciate it. DLI has a few articulation agreements already in place. I believe one is with North Georgia University, another one is with Bellevue University, another one is California University of Pennsylvania. So yes, we welcome the opportunity to create nice, strong pathways for student mobility and student success. And feel free to send me, Robert Sabukinas, and I believe here comes the slide with my email contact information on it. Any questions in forming the articulation, and I will assist and also direct you to our articulation officer.
Super, thank you. All right, we have a transcription question, which are my favorite kinds of questions. Is there any chance of renaming the language courses from FL 101, 102, etc., to something like GER 101, ARA 101, etc.? Having every language be FL makes it hard for the schools to automate a transcript evaluation, meaning that they have to manually look at the title of the course to determine which language it comes from.
Okay, on the transcript, I believe it does say AD 101, for example. So in our catalog, where we go over the course descriptions, there is a paragraph, kind of a preamble that says, FL is indicated to denote foreign language. It is for specifics, we would use on the transcript, it would indicate AD for Arabic, PF for Persian Farsi. But I do appreciate the input. I think I'm reading it right here. I'll look into that. It has ramifications of significantly, with the number of foreign languages that we have, significantly increasing the size and the complexity of our general catalog. But in terms of the transcript, they are indicated as AD for Arabic 101, elementary Arabic, or introduction to Arabic, for example.
Okay, thank you. I don't know that I've ever seen one of your transcripts before, so I couldn't say anything of value to add to that. But it sounds like the codes are both there; they're just in different places.
Correct.
Or one is in a catalog.
One is in the catalog, and it's just FL is to denote a foreign language instructed at the Defense Language Institute. The transcript has that 2-digit or that alphanumeric number, AD 101, for example, or Chinese Mandarin, CM 101, 201, etc.
Sure. Great, thank you. This may be throwing you a curveball, but do you have any detail or data off the cuff that you could share on completion of individuals that are moving through your program? Do you have any rates at which the students persist or complete that you could share with us?
When you say completion rate, is that AA degree?
In the world I live in, yes. It would typically be a degree or some sort of credential.
Okay.
Credential.
When you say, pardon?
They all get a credential.
Okay, what is she's calling it our retention, but we call it attrition.
Yeah, so basically about 80% of our students get through the program. At the end of the program, they get a credential that show that they got through successfully, okay? And then a number that gives them the 45 units from DLI for the basic course. And then for the A degree, we've only been given the A degree since 2002. And as on our previous slide, we have about 13,500 that we've awarded. Not every student wants or needs the AA degree at the time that they graduate from here, but some of them will reach back after maybe they're 2 years in the service, they've completed the courses they need. Then they'll reach back here and give us their transcripts. Then we give them their A degree if they've completed everything satisfactory.
That makes sense. Thank you. I will open it up to my co-facilitator to see if you have any questions, Jim, that you want to pose, or Sarah, if there's anything coming to mind for you, and ask those of you online to type away if you have any further questions before we end the call here.
So I have a quick one, and I may have missed it as you talked about the ACE credit recommendations in relation to the DLPT. If a student were to score higher or lower than 2.2 on the DLPT, do the credit recommendations is there equivalent set of credit recommendations higher than 12 credit hours, or if you score a 1.1, then you're a 6 credit hour type of student? And I may have missed it if you mentioned it, so I apologize for that.
Let me make sure I understand the question by kind of back briefing it. I believe that you're asking about if someone scores a particular score on the Defense Language Proficiency Test, it indicates a credit, or it indicates
ACE credits. How many ACE credits did they get?
Yeah, recommended ACE credits or the ACE transcript credits. In the same way, there's a score required on whatever college credit competency test that you could think of. You have to hit a certain score. You have to hit a 3 or whatever to get to level of credits. Is 2.2 the level you're looking for? And then ACE says, well, that equals 12 credit hours, and there's nothing if you hit a 1.1, or
okay.
And equivalently, if you get a 3 or a 4, is there something more?
Absolutely. You get a 1, you'll get a certain amount of credits. You get a 1+, you'll get a little bit more, etc. Correct. Correct. Now,
so I'm struggling because, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm wondering how a student. So I just had a student last semester who came with a DLPT score, but not the ACE recommendations, and for some reason it wasn't on his ACE transcript. And I was with their language department trying to determine what that was, and maybe there was just a mistake, or maybe the student didn't understand to get it logged somehow. The education centers didn't log it, or something like that. But do those move automatically once the test is scored onto a student's ACE evaluation?
Automatically, no. No,
okay, so they probably have to do something.
Just due to the nature of our student population, we hold on to the data because ACE could not assure us of the robustness and the security of their data systems.
Well, that's helpful because I can now say, well, we're just going to give you guys a call and sort this thing out rather than fumble through it in our internal. Because we're willing to take those ACE recommendations on our campus and obviously willing to take your transcripted, accredited recommendations, but the test score on a piece of paper wasn't enough at that stage. So we ended up doing some competency testing with the student, which he did fine, but that's part of the issue.
Yeah, it's one more step. I agree. We have a link on our website on the registrar page for ACE credit recommendation. And again, it's just one simple form. We do not charge for a DLI transcript, nor do we charge for ACE credit recommendations for the DLPT.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. This is Sarah. I just wanted to let folks know that past and future webinars can be found at mech.org, MCMC webinars. And you can always join the conversation with us on Facebook or LinkedIn. And if you have any questions about the materials for today, when they'll be posted, which I think they will be shortly, feel free to reach out to me at that email address, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Again, I'd like to thank our two presenters, and Katie and Jim, for the excellent job at moderating. Everybody have a good day.
Thank you. I look forward to receiving any further questions or possibly creating any additional pathways.
Thank you for moderating.
Great.
Your interest.
Thank you very much.